Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Matt Robinson. Matt is the founder of spreadsheet.com. Before spreadsheet.com, he was the founder and CEO of Rollbase, a low-code, rapid application development platform acquired by Progress Software, and recruitforce.com, a SaaS applicant tracking system that was acquired by Taleo, now known as Oracle Taleo Business Edition. He has a BS in mathematics from Bates College and a master's in management from Stanford University. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Matt Robinson.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, first off, Matt, why do you do what you do?
I love creating software. I love creating software with other people who love to create software. But in some ways, I don't know if this is healthy or not, but for me, it's part of my identity. It gives me a sense of purpose to create a product that lots of people use to improve the way they work or to solve problems better than their previous solutions, or whether that's working more efficiently or working together more seamlessly, or just having a product that they enjoy using more than what they were previously using. So that really drives me. I think there's something about the creative process that I'm just in love with that's sort of addictive. Spreadsheet.com is my third startup, and the process of like going from an idea and a vision and then creating that from scratch with a few people who are real believers in it along with you, and seeing it come to life and seeing people really embrace it is such an exciting experience. And there's lots of lows as well, but when it works, it's something that is so exhilarating that you just want to do it again, but you want to do it at a bigger scale than before. And so I think with spreadsheet.com now specifically, it's hard for me to imagine something with a bigger potential market size. And so I'm hoping we have many years of this experience ahead of us. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, like why I'm doing this.
But Matt, why the spreadsheet? Why reinvent the spreadsheet? We all have Excel, we have Google Sheets. Why do we need spreadsheet.com?
Well, we do, and I mean, I'm glad you said those are the two things. Like when you think about the spreadsheet, those are the two things you think of, right? And we use them all the time, despite the fact that there are so many software vendors that have been created with great products that try to take us away from the spreadsheet. But it hasn't worked. Spreadsheet usage has actually grown substantially over the last decade. So look, I think the answer is if you look at how if you sort of step back and look at how spreadsheets are used, they were originally designed for accounting and sort of financial modeling purposes. And that's still true today, right? They're great data analysis tools. But they're actually used, and we have data on this, they're used more often for tracking lists of information. They're used as lightweight databases and lightweight project management systems and lightweight applications, more than they're used for what they were designed for. And still to date, like, Microsoft and Google, they haven't taken the spreadsheet and evolved it into something that is actually meant to be used as a database and used as a project management system. And so if you look at the whole software industry through this lens of like, okay, there's all these categories of software, like multi-billion-dollar categories of software, of products that have been designed to take us away from the spreadsheet, but spreadsheets still dominate. So, for example, more CRM happens in spreadsheets than Salesforce. More ERP happens in spreadsheets than SAP and Oracle combined. More project management happens in spreadsheets than all project management software combined. And so to us, we look at that and we're like, okay, we're not going to sort of follow this very traditional common path of we see a bunch of stuff happening in spreadsheets. Let's create something that's not a spreadsheet to solve that problem. We're sort of looking at it from the reverse. Why hasn't someone built a better spreadsheet, a spreadsheet for these things, right? We're not going to build a better spreadsheet than Microsoft for data analysis. Excel is like, it would take a very long time to do that. What we're doing is saying, look, we're going to take this traditional spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that you know and love, that user experience is sacrosanct for us. And we're going to say, we're going to build in native capabilities that make it easy to use as a database, make it easy to use as a project management system, and ultimately make it easy to use as an application platform. But it works the same as the spreadsheet that you've always known.
So what have been some of the key stumbling blocks that you've encountered recently on this? I mean, you're reinventing the spreadsheet. It's got to be a decision as to what features do you build in first. That's got to be a huge challenge.
It was, and I mean, really, if you look at the history of the company, we didn't start out with this. We started out as an M&A. We started out, our goal, we weren't even called spreadsheet.com. We were called New Blend. And our goal was to build a full life cycle mergers and acquisitions, a platform for mergers and acquisitions. And what I did though, in the beginning, Murley and I, my co-founder, we sort of partnered up on this. We said, look, let's talk to 50 corporate development executives before we start actually building the product. Let's really do the research right before we actually start writing code. And so what we learned was that, our questions were, is the process broken? Yes, we kind of knew that already. But then what tools do you use? And it wasn't that anybody was using any sort of best of breed product. It was far and away, everybody's using spreadsheets for everything at every stage of this very long and sometimes complex process. And so we looked at that and we said, okay, for us, the attraction was there's trillions of dollars a year being spent on M&A and relatively high failure rates. The failure rates are getting lower, but they're still very high. And this costs companies tons of money when an acquisition doesn't work out as planned. So our thesis was, hey, if we build a suite that improves your chances of succeeding with M&A, there's a lot of value there. And so but as we looked at what it would take to actually build a software product to solve that problem, it was basically you had to build a spreadsheet, but one that also worked like an application platform, like the Force platform from Salesforce, right? We had to take those two things and say, what would the world look like if you combined the spreadsheet that we know where people are doing financial modeling and synergy analysis and all the value company valuations, and using a CRM system or something like an ERP. So how do you combine those things in a way that makes sense? That was a challenge. Going back to your question, like what were the stumbling blocks? But I think the hardest thing by far, technically, has been just building a spreadsheet. There's so much that we take for granted in a spreadsheet that when you're building one, you cannot take for granted. One of them is a formula. And then if you put on top of that a database, if you put on top of that, we're building it online, it's collaborative with n number of concurrent users with undo and redo capabilities for each one, right? So there's all this out of order undo redo stuff happening with a formula engine that works like Excel and Google Sheets, where you can do cross sheet formulas at scale with thousands of formulas in each sheet and having to recompute those on the fly in seconds, all on an online collaborative real-time environment. It's crazy hard. And it's much harder than just building a project management system or building a database-driven app online. The spreadsheet part of it is by far the hardest. So we've been humbled, and it's taken a long time. We're almost 4 years into development, and we haven't even launched commercially. We're getting close, but it's taken a lot longer than we thought.
Sure. What I love about that story is a great illustration of Matt Ridley, one of my favorite authors, talks about innovation as ideas having sex. Two disparate ideas that don't seem to belong together, coming together and having offspring. And that's what your story reminds me of. We have an exit question, Matt, that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours and why are they a hero?
Oh man, so this is really hard. It's hard for me not to give two people. So I have to sort of break it up and give you two answers. One is a guy by the name of Bill Allman, who passed away a few years ago, but he was a mentor and a friend of mine and an investor at my first two companies. And he was a role model, both as a person and a business leader. And I feel like there are fewer examples of this than at least, 10 or 20 years ago, at least for me. But he sort of exemplified for me the fact that you can be a great husband and a great father. We have 4 kids now, so I'm definitely a father and a business leader at the same time. But you have to work hard at each one of those things. And like he would explicitly talk about that. And I think he just helped role model that. I don't know if he was trying to do that, but he definitely did it. And I feel like we need more such people who you see the other side of their life, and they can be role models for us in business too. So that was a huge influence for me. And then Peter Gassner is somebody who, from a pure business perspective, I don't know him that well personally, so I can't speak about that, but I do know him just a little bit from a business context, and he's someone who has just built this incredible company called Viva Systems from a very small venture capital investment, without a lot of fanfare, to one of the biggest SaaS companies there is, faster than most. And he's done it with such little fanfare. But I guess really what gets me is like how persistent and focused and relentless he is. And he gets, there's no limelight with Peter. He's just all heads down, making it happen. So he's a model for who I think I need to be, or at least think like or be like, in order for spreadsheet.com to become what I think it has the potential to be.
And lastly, Matt, how can somebody contact you?
Email is best, matt@spreadsheet.com.
All right. And there's going to be an offer to the premium level of spreadsheet.com available until October 17th in the show notes. Matt Robinson, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Great to be here.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.